Hello, everyone. Rod Clark here, and I'm again very blessed. I guess "blessed" is not the right word. I'm very fortunate to have three amazing co-hosts with me. Again, my name is Malice Odium, and you can follow me on Twitter and YouTube. And I am also joined by Alex of Ozma in the Dark. How are we doing this evening, Alex?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. Hopefully I'll finish my YouTube video before tomorrow, so I can put in a delayed upload. But yeah, otherwise good.
And we'll make sure to update that information and links for everyone can see it as well. And above me, as everyone can see, I have Christy. How are we doing this evening, Christy?
I am doing very well, and if for the sake of self promotion, I am getting Jesse Gender's coming on mine on Tuesday, so I'm really thrilled about that. So
Awesome.
It's one of my favorite YouTubers.
And then above Alex, we have Perfict. How are we doing this evening, Perfict?
Howdy, pleased to be here.
Well, I guess this is a topic that I feel that we should have addressed earlier from the get-go of our show, as I mentioned in our pre-meetings. But I think that after we've built ourselves up a little bit, that this is a good opportunity for us to approach the topic of transgender in sports. Now, this is one thing I feel that, as a layman myself, that it needs to be addressed. I have, of course, my own opinions, but one of the things that's going to be great is we have Alex with us, who is quite versed in biology, and we also have Christy here with us, that is versed in psychology. And then Perfect, we can approach the philosophies behind it, and I can talk about the historical context, and so on and so forth. Anyone who watches, thank you so much for watching our stream. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free. We actively watch the chat, and we'll answer your questions live. So I guess the big question for everyone is, I guess we should start off with our own position. So I guess whoever wants to start, what is your guys' position on trans athletes in general?
First, I'll go first. That's easy. In general, if someone's been on HRT for an amount of time, then have at. On HRT for that's it. I'm pretty simple with that.
How about you, Alex?
I think so long as it's not breaking any sort of competition in terms of, nearly unwinnable or something, then there isn't really a problem with trans women or trans men on hormones who to compete in sports.
Yeah, if I can also add, I just want to do a plug. I think one of the people that really put out a good narrative in regards to the very concept of sports, the dreams of what a sports, what athletes inspired to do, was your good friend Zavris. He did a phenomenal video on that topic. I recommend anyone to watch it regarding the very notion of what sports stand for. So, maybe you could share that link with us later, so we can everyone can get a chance to watch that. So. And what
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that where I'm standing on it is I think it's important to remember as part of the argument that the rights of an individual also include the right to participation. So when people put off or poo-poo the idea that, well, no one is entitled to be an athlete of any kind, an Olympic athlete, no one's entitled to be that is entitled. It's something that might be achievable, but not everybody can that be achieved. So no one is entitled, but there's a right of participation, and that has to be paid attention. and the rest is all fine decision. One of the other things is I think that the definition of terms needs to be, but I always.
So I guess the big question that should be asked is relating to the topic of transgender in sports. Do you feel that you guys see any form of confusion by anyone on any side regarding this topic that maybe needs to be addressed? Have you guys ever noticed that yourselves, or maybe not? Or do you think generally people understand what's just the very notions and what's been going on with transgender in sports?
I think people. I think people still have a guy in a dress notion of how transitioning works. Most people have no clue what HRT does for the body. I've often joked the first thing I did before I started on hormones was loosened all the jars in the house, and the amount of strength that you take for granted that goes away. I mean, I'm 11 months right now on hormones. I hit the year next month. And everything about just what I can and can't do is different. People still think that the guy in the dress thing. Okay, it's not. We lose muscle mass. It's much harder to lose. It's much harder to lose fat. The actual shape changes. I'm getting shorter and my feet are getting smaller, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Smitch and Christy, and I think you're absolutely correct. There is, unfortunately, some that still stick to this old stereotype of how parents used to be in regards to trans individuals in society in general. I guess the big question I should approach is, Alex, I know you've had extensive discussions and extensive not research, but just investigations on this topic, especially with your background. I guess if this would be a fair question to ask, what exactly does, as far as your knowledge goes, and I'm not saying you're an expert, but as far as your knowledge goes, how much does HRT generally affect an individual, and how would that relate to a sport as far as your knowledge goes?
So, I mean, there's a few things. And part of the problem with sports is the way some of the base studies go aren't really the most helpful. So HRT changes body fat distribution, or, depending on the estrogen is like hips, butts, lower belly fat instead of upper belly fat. Just a bunch of fat distribution changes from that. Progesterone deals with breast fat. Obviously, there's the tissue being built, much like what happens in girls' bodies after puberty starts. Most cis girls' bodies after puberty starts. That changes the general smell because skin cells get replaced. So the bacteria that creates the smell that you smell in your body also changes and produces a more... You can smell the difference between testosterone levels if taken a long enough period of time. So
you have a citation for that, Alex?
No, but
this is weird that it's the second time today this is kind of the smell thing has come up, because there was actually a discussion in trans Twitter about it today, and I never wanted to bring it up. I'm like, but everything smells different. It's weird.
I haven't noticed much difference in terms of the smell of other things, or not that I can recall for sure. But I noticed the difference in my own smell because skin cells die the fastest and get replaced the fastest.
Yeah.
For reducing testosterone and taking estrogen, skin thickness is decreased, along with the fat distribution underneath the skin, so the skin ends up feeling softer. I know there's oftentimes some amount of body hair reduction, and with muscle, it's really hard to say. I think more than likely the maximum is decreased. So if you've been on hormones for a while, you likely have a harder time producing a certain muscle fiber types. And your muscles die, and the cells in your body die and are replaced, including muscle cells. Muscle cells die the most, especially if you exercise. So that would explain why a lot of studies, if people who don't exercise, plenty of men have almost no muscle, so they're not really going to lose a lot after taking HRT, if at any. So that would explain the distribution, because no trans athlete has done anything that assists. No trans woman has done anything that a cis woman can't do. So I have no reason to think at this point in time that there's any reason to think, at the very least, the maximums aren't changed. Obviously, individuals who take testosterone for hormone replacement therapy, it's more likely for their voices to deepen. Obviously, body hair increase, hairline receding, stuff like that. Likely smell change as well, just the opposite direction. Easier to build muscle mass. Yeah.
So if I can just, I'm gonna address this because it's the elephant in the room, and I'm just gonna be know me, I'm very bold and I'm very blunt. So I'm gonna ask, in regards to someone who goes through HRT, are there any residuals left in regards to developments an individual has from birth? So, for example, are there any characteristics, if they were assigned male at birth, are there any characteristics that reside even after someone goes through HRT? Is that as far as your knowledge goes?
Yeah, but I mean, that the amount is going to depend on the person, because different people have different body structures. So obviously, voice so if you're reducing testosterone for your HRT, your voice remains. If you're increasing testosterone, your voice has the possibility of changing to some degree. If the general structure of your bones, because the framework, bone size, organ size, those things are going to stay the same. What else? Yeah, I mean, with a lot of things, there's some crossover. So it's not like
night and day?
It's not like,
Well,
yeah, it's more like averages. And like, yeah, it's just, there are a lot of factors, because there's so many different factors that end up staying the same or not staying the same.
Yeah, and
Or there's a bunch of factors in terms of cis men and cis women. And just to be clear on terminology, cis just means they're assigned their gender that they are at birth. But yeah, there are, because there's so many differences, most men are going to have most of the traits associated with men. And most women are going to have most of the traits associated with women just because there are so many for it to happen. But there's always going to be individuals who are atypical to some degree.
Yeah, see, and this is my take, and please, anyone feel free to chime in if you disagree. But my take on this topic is very simple. For me, and I've had someone tell me before that they would consider this to be a possibility not to happen because it would be such a crucial undertaking. But for me, when it comes to an individual athlete, and I would apply this standard to everyone, that you would have to meet a certain criteria when it comes to their physiology, and I would again apply this standard equally to all individuals participating in sports. A good example of this is, like, for example, we do weigh-ins at boxing matches. For me, I would want that, instead of just doing these evaluations on one individual strictly because of their identity, I would want this to be equally parsed out to make sure it's an even playing field, if that was really the situation that people are really concerned about. And if that's one of the big issues that people do have issues with, then the one way you solve that issue, in my opinion, is you have these evaluations to make sure that everyone's on that same, quote unquote, fair playing field. But again, maybe that my idea is just completely off. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well,
I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree too. But here's the deal: when you get up into Olympic athletes or professional athletes in general, fairness is not a thing. One of the things that is really bothering me about this entire quote unquote debate is that there is no such thing as fairness up in the upper echelons. Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, or was Michael Jordan. I'm really outside of sports. I'm gonna say Jim Kelly was one of the great passers in the game ever. That kind of thing. Fairness doesn't kind of come into it. Serena Williams is the one that wins all the time, right? Or is it the other one? I always forget.
Well, Serena Williams wins all the time.
Okay, Serena Williams has had. What's that?
She's tennis.
Okay. Serena Williams has gotten a lot of crap over the years. I suppose before she got pregnant, or I hope I'm getting some of this right, because again, sports, and I know the biology of sports. I don't know the sports. I know she's gotten a lot of crap over the years because she was too manly, and I don't even know how you measure that. Perhaps she has more manly muscle tone. It's a thing. It's not, fairness doesn't really enter into it. She is who she is, and she's competing as a woman who is I hate to use this term because it's a terrible term, biological woman. I need to put air quotes around that.
If I can add on to that real quick, Christy. So I actually agree with you, and so I want to make sure I'm very clear on my position. Again, remember, the only reason why I personally think I would try to do something like I mentioned is only to address the concerns people talk about when it comes to fair and balanced or whatever. As I already mentioned before, I generally agree with the video as Alex's friend Zavars put out on the concept of sports, as I myself am not a sports aficionado. But
Right.
for me, one of the ways you can solve their concerns is this approach. Is it probably the best way to approach it? Probably not. Maybe there's more better ideas out there.
Well,
This is just go ahead, Alex.
The problem is there has to actually be an issue to approach, like how oftentimes how a lot of things get addressed in sports is people play the sports, and then if they are destroying competitions, they check to see if there's something that would mean that they're cheating. Because no transgender athlete has been especially impressive at sports. I mean, there's been a few wins, but none of them have been wins that I don't think there's been any actual records broken. At least none that I can think of. A lot of times it's just like, oh, they won gold, but they didn't get the best time ever. And they're just like, oh, record's broken. And that's not how records work. So I think that, I think there should be checks after something actually occurs and suggest that there's like a real problem, something to check.
Yeah, and see, for me, this is where my criticism or my skepticism comes in. There are two facets I deep dive this past week in regards to this topic that I really I don't understand. So I looked into a few studies. Again, I am just looking at this in a layman from general scientific articles and studies. But as far as my understanding go, women who are born, who are assigned, a person that was assigned a woman at birth, these individuals tend to have more balance and more, more balance and more endurance when it comes to burst energy. Like, that's what I've read. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, again, my information on this is incorrect. But,
well, I'm sorry.
Well, speaking of the elephant in the room, the original Rationality Rules videos, he went on about fast twitch and slow twitch muscles and how men have more fast twitch muscles so they can get out of the gate faster. Well, somebody checked into that because, it seemed to be something that was useful.
Yeah.
Well, I meant as far as a real study. I mean, I'm not being offensive. I hope an actual study. I do not. I wish Justin were here because he knows the studies off the top of his head.
Well, so real quick, if I can add this.
But it turns out that women have more fast twitch muscles. So even that particular argument is nonsense.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. So roughly about 7-8 months ago, I actually gave that source to another individual on Twitter through a private message, and they shared that on their show. So I'm actually I don't know if other people mentioned it, but I'm one of the first people that I know on Twitter in my scope that actually share that information. Doesn't mean I did anything special. It's just what I did. So in regards to that study, it showed at a Olympic or an expert level, as far as my understanding goes, that when it comes to women, they tend to, especially at the competitive level, they tended to have equal, if not more, fast twitch muscle fibers than their counterparts. Now, again, I've heard different disagreements from individuals regarding that study, and again, to me, I don't have enough knowledge for me to make a determination on that. It appears at face value, but that needs to be the case. But I don't know. Again, I've learned in the past that I make my own mistakes regarding studies, so I don't know.
The thing is, a lot of this is, actually, Perfect. Do you have anything to say about this? You've been really quiet.
Well, yeah, I would say that the fast twitch muscle fibers, I would expect the female athlete to be showing more fast twitch muscle fibers than their normal counterparts. Similarly, the male athletes should be showing their male counterpart. So I wouldn't see that as being unusual. They should be showing high. The female athlete have higher testosterone by a lot, like double testosterone. This is in part because if you just have less body fat, you have more testosterone. If you have more testosterone, you also tend to have less body fat. It's a cycle. So they will tend to be very lean and have higher testosterone just on the basis of that. But they have a lot of other things involved, including simply if you have more testosterone, you're apt to be more athletically inclined, and therefore you're more likely to pick going to the Olympics as one of your goals. So, I mean that you know, it just they all totaled come together too. You would expect them to have more testosterone, and they seem to. And there's certain attributes of having more testosterone that we believe are like the hemoglobin, so on, but those dissipate with HRT and pretty swiftly.
Well, yeah, and ultimately my point was just going to be that a lot of this is a distraction from the simple fact that these competitions have been available. And there hasn't been anything. Trans women, some of whom have been competed with stuff for a really long time.
2002.
Well, yeah, I know, but like some people, the point is, some of these people, a lot of people who become athletes have always been athletes. So it's hard to, so they transition, and trans women seem to compete on the same level as, trans women can be at the same level as cis women, trans men can be at the same level as cis men. And so it's like, what you can delve into every single nuance difference, but there are a lot of parts of the body, and there are a lot of differences with people, and I don't see the reason to break it down. Like you don't with most people. You don't go, hey, there's LeBron James. Let's measure every aspect of his body to determine if he's being unfair, being too good of a basketball player. Yeah, nobody does that.
Well, see, this goes into the 2 points I was making earlier, Alex. And again, I'm gonna try to mention these real quick. And there's a lot more nuance than that, but I have to bring this up. So number one, and I think other people have brought this up, right now in the Middle East, there is a huge population of individuals in the Middle East that are transgender because they're forced to based on other circumstances. My first question is, why isn't a country like Iran, who participates in the Olympics, why don't, if this perception that there is this major advantage of these athletes regarding their identity, if this is the case, why don't countries like Iran have a major influx of these individuals who identify this way? Why don't they participate more actively in their sports? That's my first question. And maybe anybody wants to address that if they have a response.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when people used to make fun of the East Germans for winning stuff, and all the women were supposedly men in disguise, and that's carried over a lot from that idea. No country has done that, and no country ever will, because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. I can tell you my testosterone levels right now, and I can tell you that pick a random cis woman off the street, and hers are higher.
And that's where my first criticism of those that speak on this topic is, if this was such a blatant case, if this was such a huge problem as some people put it out to be, then you would see some form of empirical evidence of countries with this demographic of people who identify this way, with this life situation. You would imagine there would be this influx of these type of people in this category. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my first observance. The second thing is regards to trans men. Now, as I mentioned earlier, again, this is I'm more than welcome to be corrected on this. But as far as my understanding goes, those that were assigned women at birth, they generally tend to have more balance and more endurance when it comes to short-term recovery. And one of the key sports that this relates to is gymnastics. Now, I'm wondering if you spun this on this discussion on its head, and you had trans men entering men's gymnastics, what would the discussion be at that time? Because it is well known that when it comes to gymnastics, women tend to be more flexible. They tend to have better balance. They tend to perform way better. I mean, if you look at the statistics of women versus men in regards to gymnastics, it's nowhere in comparison as far as what I've read. Like, women's gymnastics overwhelms men's gymnastics. Yet, why aren't we seeing an influx of trans men who are possibly gymnasts taking over the gymnastics field in the men's field and dominating that sport? You know what I mean? Maybe my observation is wrong. I don't know.
No, it's trans men always get left out of the conversations.
And I agree with that.
I think Scott's Rebel, who is in my chat, or at the very least was, put a point that kind of works with this. Testosterone does not directly equal performance, and regardless of which side he's talking about, it's not direct unless you're talking about like weightlifting. There's some things where it is kind of, well, no, that's not even directly testosterone, but it is a factor.
Well, those are there's 2 points of confusion that I like to get out of the way, which is the
Please, Perfect.
Women's sport. It's a different use of the term women. It's meaning biologically disadvantaged, particularly during teenage development. During puberty, were you under high testosterone or were you under high estrogen? Either that those have effects on your structure or so on, and it's talking about that. That's really what it's supposed to be addressing. It's supposed to be a separate category, even though we recognize that there's no such thing as separate but equal, but we could not work out a way to make it equal otherwise. So we accepted separate in the instance.
And can I add something?
It's a disadvantaged category.
And can I add something to that? So here's I'm going to just be very blunt about this. Again, this is my way. When it comes to this topic, and I'm going to address this on both sides, and I know I'm probably going to get flack for this, but this is I think the fundamental problem with this discussion. Yes, it's important that people need to share their opinions regarding this, but at the end of the day, 99.9% of the people who are talking about this are pure laymen. They don't have an expertise in this, and they don't have a dog in this fight. So my biggest problem is, like, this is one of the reasons why I haven't really stepped back, but I've become a little bit more nuanced when it comes to this topic, is I think that the science needs to pander this out. I think that when it comes to the very concept of women in sports, they should be able to compete full-fledged. That's my position. I'm more than welcome for anyone to try to change my mind in regards to their own points, but trans women are women, and it's not some type of talking point. They are society, every definition of a woman. So if they are an athlete, they should be able to compete in the identity they belong to. That's my position. And because of that...
Right. See, now that's what I was just addressing. And that's where a point where I'm saying you're confused. Because the word woman is being used, you think it has the same meaning as other uses of the word women. But once again, it really doesn't mean the same thing there.
I agree, perfect. And I do understand that. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, yeah, no. So the problem is that there's no reason to think that trans women have competed on the same level as cis women, and trans men have competed on the same level as cis men. So there needs to be, you can break down theoretical possible things that give advantages or disadvantages, but honestly, that's a lot of information to process. And you know what? We've got years and years of research. It's called Trans Women Who Have Been Competing, Trans Men Who Have Been Competing, and none have been into the Olympics. The Olympics have allowed it for like forever. Well, 15 years or whatever. I don't remember the exact day, but and no trans women and trans men. Countries for around the world, countries could choose the best athletes, and they really haven't chosen. What?
Sure of that. I know the Olympic Committee has made provision, and it is my understanding they have been debating since I think it was 2002.
Yes, both of you are right. That's actually, both of you are right. It's 2002 and 2004.
And that they really have been participating, and look, they haven't broken the system.
And that goes into my original...
They haven't been on anyone's team.
I apologize, Alex. What was that again? I apologize.
They haven't been on anyone's team. No one has brought trans women and trans men. None of them have gotten to Olympic levels.
And they haven't talked about team sports. No, I'm saying that the Olympic Committee said that they were allowing trans, I guess 2004, I'll accept that, and that they've been doing it and modifying their rules since then. They recently remodified them yet again, and due to new sports medicine studies. And I don't know that there were any trans people participating in sports, but I would assume so, since they had the rules for them and they were making modifications.
Are you saying that an Olympic athlete had their entire backstory, was able to hide their entire backstory and was secretly a transgender athlete somewhere in between those times? Because
I really wouldn't. I think that was a possibility in the Wayback Machine, and black and white B-roll, but I don't think that that's in any way possible in the recent. No.
And real quick, if I just to kind of add on to what you guys are saying, this is why, as I mentioned in regards to my criticism or my skepticism on this topic, like I said, an example of this is Iran. I know I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but it goes into someone hasn't really demonstrated to me a valid counter to this in regards to if this is such an issue, if they have these supposed advantages. And again, I pose this question to anyone. I welcome anyone to address me personally or through the show on answering this question. If there are these supposed advantages in regards to these individuals in sports, why aren't these countries that have these demographics of those who identify in regards to their experiences, why aren't countries like Iran picking these individuals for their sports teams? And go ahead.
I would doubt that a country with such a provincial attitude would choose to be represented by trans.
Actually, to be honest with you, Perfict, if you actually, as far as my knowledge goes, the general demographic of trans individuals in Iran, remember, most of them are forced to do that because of the perceiving of Sharia law. And because of the harmful edicts of Islam, they force those who are also not just people with gender dysphoria, but people who are shown to be they consider them mentally ill. Even people who are just homosexual are forced in that position. But even in that's the case, they aren't socially accepted generally when it comes to relationships. They're kind of ostracized in a lot of ways. But when it comes to the sports, there are many, I would argue, many individuals who have been forced to this situation that you couldn't tell the difference, to be honest. So, if Iran did this, I would say there would be no way we could really see if they were anywhere different. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
it's dependent on our being able to protect. They're saying that they don't like them. They view them with prejudice. Therefore, they are not going to want to be represented by them.
Yeah, but and I understand the sentiments, Perfict. But again, for example, okay. I'll give you a reason why I slightly disagree with that notion, and here's why. If you look at history, there have been countries that have used their populace, even when they didn't want those populace represented, in the Olympics. So a prime example of that is the United States. There was a huge demographic. I mean, back in the 1930s, African Americans were heavily prejudiced, even beyond what it is today. It's still the case today, but even beyond what it is today, against of African Americans, and a lot of Americans did not want, and a lot of people in government did not want the African Americans to represent us in the Olympics. Yet you had an occasion where you had a guy like Jesse Owens come in the 1930s and win numerous gold medals regarding him going and competing in track in Germany, in Berlin. So again, just because they may not appear to accept them socially, doesn't mean that a government or a country will not use them to their advantage if it promotes their general appearance in the world stage.
Well, also
they also are willing to. They're willing to let Jim Thorpe get his medals taken back.
Yeah.
Even though if they wanted to contest it, they could have. But they didn't. They didn't want to contest it. They preferred to, because Jim Thorpe was an Indian.
Yeah. Two things. First, their version of Islam, not Islam itself. And second, Iran sports is incredibly progressive. Just in general, it's. I do not know why I had occasion to look into this, because again, I give a shit less about sports. But anybody who will win for them is on their team. That's their deal.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh no, that's all right. That's all right. It'd get too far off the topic if I were to get into it a lot.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, maybe my observation on this could be fundamentally wrong, but again, if this was again such a huge purveyance that's going on in sports today, again, that I would, like I said, I'm just going to leave it at that. I would love someone to give me a rational reason why. Countries like Iran, countries like, I'm pretty sure even Pakistan just introduced a new form of Sharia law where they're going to allow trans individuals there based on their twisted interpretations of Sharia law. But for me, I really would want someone to give me a rationale, a reasonable answer to why, if this was such a big problem, why aren't countries like this having this issue? Why aren't they using this to their advantage? But that's it.
Well, I'd just pick the United States.
What was that again? Perfect.
We've got a huge population. Therefore, we've got a huge population. So even if trans people are a fairly small percentage, the United States has a huge population. We've got a lot of trans people. And we've got no trans people representing us? Yay. What's the problem with that?
Well, the only trans person that would be
why don't we have a trans team?
The only trans woman that would, and I'm going, I may be totally wrong about this, so if I am, I apologize, and I will correct it in the notes somewhere. But the only trans athlete who is able to qualify for the American team is going to be going to try to qualify through Canada instead. So
seems quite possible.
Yeah,
I'm saying that that's the strong argument that I see is countries that don't have prejudice trans people and are trying to at least appear supportive, even if they want to argue about bathrooms. And well, why wouldn't they have a lot of trans people on their teams taking advantage of this crossover if the crossover led to huge advantage?
And again, that's my major form of criticism or on regards to this talking point, because it just, again, I try to be as empirical as I can regarding this topic, because again, I'm a layman. But so, I don't know. I guess real quick, I do have to mention that we are taking call-ins at the time. If you have any 2 cents regarding this topic, feel free to hit up one of us on our Discord channel. We'll be happy to pull you in to share in our discussion. But with that being said, but yeah, like I said, see, there's so much nuance to this topic that I just want to emphasize this. Is it wrong for me to consider this a topic when it comes to discussing it, when it comes to layman's, that too many people are making too many determinations regarding what should happen instead of letting the experts in the field make these decisions? Am I wrong in that observation? Am I wrong about that?
We're Americans. We hate experts.
I mean, no, I don't think you're wrong with that. For the most part, ultimately, sports is a philosophical, and the reasons for having the teams that we do is a philosophical thing. It's not a scientific method. We use occasional things for things we find to be that'll kill competition, but sports has always been about competition. Even in Olympic things, they always talk about competition. They don't talk about what's fair or, what's going to even things out. No, they're just like, oh, this is going to be a competition. This isn't going to be a competition, because that's all that matters for this. That's why weight classes were created. That's because people who weigh too little just couldn't compete against big people. In boxing,
I completely, with the sentiments you just shared, Alex. This is again a very great point. Like a person who identifies as a woman who for example, who, let's say they were assigned a man at birth, they were, let's say their height is only like 5'4", 5'5". They are, statistically shorter than the average individual when it comes to their demographic. So if they identify as a woman now, and if you do a comparison of that individual to another person that has the same height but maybe was assigned woman at birth, how do you determine if
the WNBA, and you'll find women who are 6'7" to 6'10" a lot.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I think it's an important aspect that hopefully, you know, and when it comes to my opinion, people either, you know, adopt or maybe even can try to convince me otherwise. But this is why I think there's just so much variation when it comes to an individual. There's just too much for someone to make a black and white determination in regards to what should happen and what should not happen. You know what I mean? Each individual's experience is so fundamentally different from one another that when you say this standard is going to apply toward everyone and you completely bypass the individual's perspective, I just personally find that incredibly harmful. I don't know. Again, that's just my position on that. So.
Well, that's what I was trying to say when I said there is no such thing as fairness in sports. There really isn't, and it's a ridiculous. I mean, you can get it to a certain amount of fairness, but once you go past that, you might as well be Harrison Bergeroning everybody.
I agree, and I actually agree with that sentiment, Christy. But go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, please.
What's Harrison Bergeroning?
It is a short story by Kurt Vonnegut. It's about how everybody is given a like if they're too strong in their legs, they're given weights, or if their eyesight's too good, they're given glasses that make their eyesight fuzzy, so that everybody is exactly fair.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I guess Perfict. Do you have any like takes on this so far, like what I've mentioned, or?
Well, like I was saying, the woman argument doesn't really necessarily apply, and then you've got to iron out the other side inequities. But the idea of you're trying to achieve fairness is a little bit. You're trying to achieve something close to equity, but you're trying to achieve equity for the appearance of one group of society in sport, and then you're trying to work in another group as well. That doesn't mean that because the one group, and we have identified that as women's, that anyone who is properly identified as a woman fits that category. And we do have an open category, which includes people like Michael Phelps, who have biological features which are outside the norm, and is nonetheless allowed to participate because that's just how it goes. And but that does mean that you also have question marks next to people who are fitting, like people who are fitting into the lower category, the runner, who it was. Some people have conjectured that she's
Caster Semenya.
Thank you.
Caster Semenya, yeah. So go real quick, Alex.
Where the production of testosterone is placing her beyond the regulatory limit for participating.
So, and real quick, so Alex, you were going to say something? I apologize. I want to make sure.
What do you want me to do? What are the rules in terms of Collins and trying to, and how do I tell if, what do you want me to do for Collins?
Yeah, go ahead and assign them, and go ahead and send them an invite to the. Okay, so
assign them.
Yeah, assign them. Again, we're live here, but assign them the roles of new and viewer, and then tell them to message me, or send me a friend request, or send you a friend request, and then you can add them to the conversation.
All my brain stopped to in terms of assigning stuff. Shit.
So
wait, who else knows what they're doing? Profile mention, message, call, add note, change nickname, invite server.
Just tell them to send me a friend request.
Can I not do this? Are you the only one who can do this?
No, you have permission to do this too, Alex.
Because I don't see.
You have to do it under general chat, Alex.
I don't see this person in the general part. But
Okay, hold on. So I'm gonna still be here, guys.
Oh, wait, there they are. Okay. Yeah,
yeah, and so
there we go.
make sure they either
Viewer
say
new. Oh, they got viewer new now.
I gave them viewer and new.
okay, cool.
Oh, okay.
And what you need to do is one of you guys need to assign them as a friend. Tell them to send you a friend request, and then you can invite them into the chat by clicking on the add friends to DM on this, and they can join us.
Add friends to DM.
Yeah, it's okay. So you see the little pinned messages on the top right corner of the live stream on Discord, and you see where it says add friends to DM. Just tell them to send me a friend request. I'll take care of it, Alex.
Okay. Shit, what's your username? Or wait, yeah, I'm just gonna say send me a friend request.
Yeah, I'm adding him as a friend. I'm doing it at my end. Hold on a second.
Okay. If you can do it on your end.
Yeah, I'm doing it at my end, Alex.
Okay. Wow, we are totally moving this up.
All right, guys. So we're gonna be bringing someone. So before I bring them on, I asked everyone, Wingman, if you're gonna come on, please be respectful and let's try to keep it a cordial conversation. So give me a second. All right, can everyone hear him?
Say something.
Hello, Wingman, can you hear us? Oh, looks like he dropped.
Oh.
We'll try this again.
It may take a moment to authenticate.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm slow on.
So I'm gonna. So Wingman, if you can hear us, you can join back in at any time into the discussion. So
Yeah.
let's try this one more time, guys. I'm ringing him now. Let's see if he answers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not. So we'll just continue on. I don't know what happened there, but okay. Anyways.
Could be supposed to be. Wait, I'm gonna. Oh,
There he is.
wait. Hello.
Wingman, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us?
When you can hear us, Wingman, feel free to say something, but we're going to continue on the conversation, okay? So, see you 1 second.
Okay, I had a few points I want to cover. That I think it's different for each, and that height is very important for basketball, and people were talking about that, and that's recognized by pretty much every. Strength is one of the least important features in tennis, but it's why men and women are separated in tennis for competition, because the advantage of strength is simply crushing. It's not just that their serve is on average, like I think it was 30 miles faster. It's a whole lot of, and that it's simply a telling advantage. When you're playing sports at a professional level, the difference between winning and coming in fourth is frequently measured in fractions of a second. And that's all it takes is a teeny advantage to make a big difference. So I think it's different for each sport. But when it comes to darts, I don't think it makes any difference. And I don't see where it makes any. I don't see where we're going to be able to say there's some physical difference that's making a telling difference there. I don't think that that's the case. And I think that we need to have the experts making these decisions where they've got access to people who will know the sports very well and access to sports medicine very well. They can get the reliable information, and we need to be willing to fund study. I think the important thing is that we need to make people who will be doing that aware that we want them to be looking for ways to have trans people be able to participate. The participation is an important part of being a person.
One of the and I was told I should mention this, and there's no real way to get into this, and I haven't looked into it. I'm just told mention this. We're leaving non-binary people out too.
That is a good point, Christy.
Yeah. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, I think that perhaps they're pointing out that it's not really women's sports and men's sports. It's restricted category and basically unrestricted, but not entirely category.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sorry, come on.
And I think that once you've established that, you can say which do you you want to be participating in sports, which category do you better fit in? Do you fit into the restricted category? In which case, that's probably the better one.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that, like, long term, yeah, things need to be broken down and just not be about gender, but if we can get to the point where we can realistically understand every aspect, because there's plenty of women who are like, there are women who are 6'10", and there are men who are 5'4". Like, there's a range of heights, range of weights, range of all sorts of physical features that is possible, and top-tier athletes generally have whatever works best for the sport.
And if I can just add this, so I fundamentally agree with you, Alex. And again, this is one of the reasons why I brought up, in regards to, doing an evaluation on each individual athlete. I understand people can say that, we shouldn't be so invasive into individuals. I understand that argument. It's a very valid point. But one of the ways you address this issue relating to everyone's individual perspective is regarding doing these types of evaluations. And again, this is not to say I'm thinking we should do like DNA testing and stuff, but I think generally, we've seen this done in other sports and other criteria when it comes to weight class, so on and so forth. I think this would be a valid solution to solve that issue.
Well, I think that would only work if you can break down a sport to something basic, because if you start getting way too complicated, then you are extremely restricting the number of athletes who can be on there. Then there's just going to be that one person who wins all the time, and that's going to be a very boring thing to watch, because most people like to watch a competition, which is why competition is generally like the big focus for sports. And yeah, that's why I keep going back to trans men can compete against cis men. One almost made the Olympics. It came like this close to the Olympics. And trans women can compete against cis women. And at the very least, if there have been trans women athletes ever, which I am not aware of any, they've been going deep stealth.
Well, if they were going to do DNA testing, then Rod and I would be in weird shit anyway.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't do I wouldn't advocate for like DNA testing or chroma. No, see, for me, like the way I would, again, this is coming from a person that is not a big sports person. So please, I want everyone who's watching to understand this. My solution is without any really big knowledge in sports. So if other people have other positions that they have regarding more on the nuances of sports and athleticism, please feel free to share it in the comment section or afterward, what have you. But the solution that I'm throwing out there, again, it's not perfect, but okay, no pun intended, perfect. but when it comes to the solution, it's you would evaluate an individual. So you would basically have categories in sports not broken down as based on the gender. It would be based on the criteria. And I actually, in my opinion, would think this would actually be more competitive, because if you had different criteria of sports in regards to, for example, let's just say you have people above 6 feet playing basketball, and then you have people below 6 feet playing basketball on a team.
Basketball's not a good example because with basketball,
right.
there are different positions, and you can have I can't remember the shortest center, but it was I want to say it was something like 5'6" for men's for NBA centers, and not center. Sorry. Wow, I completely died with my NBA knowledge. Point guard. Point guard is the role which height isn't as important since you can do a lot of different things depending on your height. So if you're short, obviously passing and some other stuff, you're probably not going to be Steph Currying it and getting shoot the ball from anywhere, but maybe you are. I don't know. And yeah, centers are usually the tallest. Centers are usually the people that are 6'10", 7'2", shit like that.
Go ahead, Chris. I want to bring this up because anybody who's watching this, who is trans women don't belong in whatever, the name is going to come up, and I want to get this one out of the way and dealt with. Ronda Rousey, I'm pretty sure that's her name. She MMA fighter. She only did the 6 matches. She broke someone's. She caused caused an orbital fracture in her opponent.
Ronda Rousey is just a famous cis woman.
Yeah.
Athlete.
Ronda,
am I wrong?
She fought more. She's really famous, but yeah, I get the name of the other one.
I forget the name of the other person.
She had a 6-2 record.
6-2.
And this is nothing extraordinary. She was good at her job, but she wasn't fantastic. And an orbital fracture is not anything big in the game.
It's one of those
a game where you're allowed to knee somebody in the face.
It is the second most common injury in that sport. So, excuse me, but you can F off about her because, damn it, that's not a valid criticism. So, I'm sorry about getting the name wrong.
Athlete. She's Ronda Rousey could beat the shit out of Fallon Fox.
Fallon Fox, there we go.
Yeah. No, I've been saying that over and over because someone in my chat brought it up. But yeah.
I told you I don't know sports.
Yeah, and see, again, this is, I think, it goes back into, again, my original dilemma that in regards to this topic. And this is one of the reasons why, as I mentioned, Zavaris earlier with you, Alex, he is a sports aficionado. He's not a sports expert, but he's an aficionado. And this is, again, one of the situations that come up with individuals like me and Christy. I would agree. I'm on board with you, Christy. I'm not a big sports person either. So my solutions that I can bring up is probably going to be either too far-fetched or not coherent or not acceptable because we are approaching it either from an empirical basis or we're doing it more without the nuance of the philosophy of sports. And I think that's the problem. At the end of the day, this is where I think that the discourse ends, and that this is what shuts down the debate with a lot of people. is they try to present themselves as experts relating to this subject. And of course, it's important for them to have an opinions, and they should address their opinions, absolutely. But at the same time, I think people need to understand their limitations regarding a topic that they may not have a correlation with when it comes to understanding. And maybe, again, maybe I'm wrong on this take.
Well, the only sport I ever trained in was cycling. So this is one thing I do know a little bit about. I got hit by a car, which kind of took
Hit by a car club?
Yeah, I got hit by a car on my bicycle by a PD. So yeah, that's
high five for hit by a car club. I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. So what?
Yep, pedestrian.
I was on my bike.
Car was a pedestrian. Yep.
I was indeed.
Okay. Rod, are you the person out of this? Out of the get
I've
hit by a
actually
car
been
club?
hit by a car when I was 16. That's a long story, but
I
hit by the hard car club. That's what secretly brought us all together.
One of the things I did when that video came out is I made an attempt to contact everybody that was mentioned in it, because I said, okay, let's actually find out what is not being said here. And thankfully, the cyclist involved, whose name I'm not going to mention, because the person who had the audacity to win once in the 35 to 40 category in a timed heat. I've been thankful to befriend her, but she's had to change her name on Twitter because there was not one thing she wrote where somebody didn't just write cheater or you're a man, you don't deserve it. It doesn't matter what she was writing. I had a really great day teaching this morning. You're a cheater. This was like what every single day was like. So it was, but she won once out of 12 times, and it was a timed heat, and it's 35 to 40, and people are using her as an example of trans women who are sweeping all the competition under the rug. It's like
yeah.
See, for me, when I hear people make those talking points, I'm going to be 100%. Again, I'm blunt. I think people are using alarmist rhetoric when they use those examples, because and this is not to say that it's not possible that this occurrence could happen, but again, when it comes to this actual topic, and I think this is again, I guess my emphasis on why I'm bringing this up so much, and I'm keep repeating myself, is because people really needed to kind of like not calm down. They need to discuss. They need to have open discussions about this subject. But again, people need to know that when it comes to using this form of rhetoric, of talking about, this is an example of this supposed situation that is giving supposedly an advantage in sports. Well, that's not really how logical discussions work. That's not how it happens. You can't use a one-off example to show a correlation with everything else. You have to show an average of this situation happening for it to be considered an actual issue. Am I wrong on that from you guys?
No, not at all.
I think that cycling probably falls in the same category as long-distance running, which is where going through puberty under high testosterone has the minimum effect. And there's a study on long-distance runners. I put it into chat there. That it shows that it when adjusted for gender and adjusted for age, the people having gone through HRT were placing exactly the same percentiles as before. That long-distance runners who had postponed going through transition until late in their career, so on, they all place the same.
you brought up something that reminds me of something that frustrates me. There's a narrative that goes around that trans women are just shitty athletes, shitty cis men, basically, that decided to transition to do better at the particular sport. And the problem with that is the problem with every athlete. People act like athletes just magically become better. And that's not how it works. There's tons of work that goes into competing. There's just tons and tons of practice trying to understand things better. So, like, yeah, you could even if you find the one or two examples of a trans woman who actually ended up competing better in some minor sport, you don't know why. There's like a million reasons why that trans woman could compete better. Some athletes just drop in skill level, and some athletes just jump in skill level after a year. And it's not all like hormones or like these are like 20-year-old athletes, 20-something-year-old athletes. Sometimes just everything clicks in their head, and they just get better at sports. And yeah.
If I can, so this is again, I think at the end of the day, one of the things that when it comes to my when it comes to me sharing my opinion at the end of the day, at the end of the show, toward the end of the show, that I hopefully people come from my perspective of where I'm coming at, is you are 100% right, Alex. That each individual's perspective is incredibly important that needs to be addressed. And at the end of the day, I think I'm gonna hit another elephant in the room here. This is where I think this situation has occurred in the community on YouTube and on social media between Essence of Thought and Rationality Rules and other individuals in the mix. This is where I think the problem is you had one person take a hard stance, or what appears to be a hard stance, regarding a topic that, in my opinion, they didn't have a lot of forte of knowledge regarding such topic. And they made a lot of mistakes regarding that talking point that many perceived, including myself, to be incredibly troublesome and biased. And because of that, then you had another person take another position of making claims and statements that realistically they may not have expertise on, and then everything just got jumbled in the middle. So you have many people talking about a topic that they may relatively have no clear understanding on. They're not biologists. They're not sports experts. I don't know what that would be considered in traditional sense. They're not like athletics directors or whatever. They're not experts in that field. And I think that's where the conflation and all this mishmash has been going on, is you have so many people talking about a topic that they really don't have a true grasp on, and then they're just sometimes speaking past each other, or they're speaking to each other, but they don't. I don't know. Maybe my take is wrong. I don't know.
Well, one of the things I'd like to comment is the study which I was talking about there. I recall reading where the Olympic Committee had cited that as part of the reason for the revisions that they were making, the recent revision they made regarding sports and HRT, and they lowered it used to be 2 years. I think they lowered it to a year.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So, I mean, that they took it serious. And they have available. So I think that makes it a credible study.
One of the problems, I think, is a lot of people don't, and pardon me, I'm really trying to not curse, although I've said fuck 3 times already.
There is no filter here, Christy. Be yourself. There is no filter. I don't care about the flack.
Most people don't know shit about how to read a study. It is a bit of a skill. that you have to learn. Even the studies that were in the Noel made it worse, but Noel makes everything worse. No, Noel just did not understand what he was doing when he tried to back up some of what Rationality Rules had to say, because he did not understand the studies he was reading. The one thing you can say the difference is that because Essence of Thought is made up of two people who are very, very, very well versed in research. One of them being a researcher, but the other, I'm not going to explain what the other person does. They went through everything pretty fine-tooth comb. Although they did get a couple of things wrong and have apologized for that. And SJW Debates, who is very good at reading studies.
He's currently watching.
The Jangle Science Lad he goes by now, which he shouldn't, but he doesn't listen to me. There is a new study that we've been getting thrown at us a lot, and he and I are going to be going through that with a pretty fine-tooth comb. The biggest I have to do all of this academically because, like I said, I don't sport. So, but I can read these things, and I have yet to find one credible study. There's Dr. Miku's study, which is him talking out his ass, and even the intro to the study says, "Hi, this is me talking out of my ass," in so many words. I don't think everybody's opinion is equal. It just isn't, because most people don't just. We still get the man in the dress thing, and which ignores so much. In order to get to the trans people shouldn't be in sports, there's so much you have to layer into that. This is building a brick wall before you even get to the top of it, so you can stand there with your flag. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and if I can just add on to that as well, Christy, and I think the important factor relating to what you're saying comes down.
Shit. No.
Phone. No, but I think one of the, just like to add on.
Oh. Hello. Let me turn my microphone off. I'm actually on air right now.
So she'll be right back. But I think just to add on to what Christy was saying, is in relating to this topic, this is where I think that a lot of individuals, and again, I'm not going to say, I don't know from my experience and from my knowledge, like I know history. I went to school for history. And if I started talking about like biology with you, Alex, and I'm trying to like say, like if you study biology in school, Alex, and for me, like it would be for like me, let's say me and you were having a discussion on, I don't know, the migrating of birds, right? You would have, of course, way more understanding and reasonable justifications for your. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I'm not good at that particular field. I mean, when you get into migrating of birds, that starts to get into specific fields. I just know basic biology, so, well, I call it basic biology. molecular biology isn't considered basic by most people who are studying high school biology, but it's not super complicated. Sorry,
No, that's cool, but I'm just trying to give you an example of kind of like the situation in where, like if we're having a discussion and you have one person that may have more of a background relating to the topic, even if you're like I guess the example of the birds flying is a bad example, or birds migrating. But I'm just trying to put out that I think that's the important factor is you have to put weight behind some individuals' talking points and presentations over others, depending upon their background, based on their expertise, based on their education, based on and I want to hit up what Christy here said, and people can disagree with me here, and I think me and you, Perfict, discussed this a while ago relating to another topic. But people don't understand that when it comes to them approaching a topic, especially if they're a non-believer, one of the problems with this situation is people don't understand that there are a lot of concepts that they once adopted in society that they were raised to believe or to grasp based on religious undertones. Again, this is not to demonize religion, but there are a lot of concepts we know, everyone here I'm pretty sure agrees, that are innate into religion that are wrong, and it's very hard for some people to let go of these concepts. Maybe you guys disagree with that.
No, I agree with that.
No, I agree with that. Though I was going to be using it as a counter. I was going to be pointing out that if somebody was talking biology and told me that breeding animals, if I let them look at a striped stick, that they'd be likely to have striped offspring. Be like, I do not think it works that way.
Yeah, you brought that up before, Perfict, when we were talking. So I guess, so let's put an emphasis on this. I think because we got like about 30 minutes left on the show, I think what would be important is I think we generally all had a topic we wanted to bring up that surrounds this, what we've been talking about so far. So I think one of the best ways we can address this is let's each share our own individual perspective regarding what you think should happen and what do you think will happen. So I guess who wants to start?
Let Alex start. Alex looks comfy.
How's your cat, Alex?
Yeah, Thor is being really sweet. He hides under my bed, so he's just sort of like crawled up, and I'm like, I don't remember you ever being in this room. But yeah, so
yeah,
what,
so
what happened, think that like I mean, unless something is causing a domination in sports, I don't see a reason for there to be a change. And but I think what will happen is more likely, unless the general politics changes, what's probably more likely to happen is it continues to try. There continues to be policies that weed out people if they don't fit a certain mold enough. But how to predict the future?
Real quick, so out of respect, Jangle's Science Lab made a great comment, and I think I'm going to direct this a little bit towards you, Perfict. So the study you linked, I linked it in the YouTube chat, and he goes, the study you're referencing wasn't done on athletes. Any changes in physiology that doesn't take training into account cannot be applied to athletes. From the study, we acknowledge that this study was conducted on untrained individuals and not transgender athletes. So, do you have anything you want to not say? I'm not going to say you have a counter, but do you want to mention anything regarding to what Jangle Science Lab mentioned? Perfict.
Olympic Committee seemed to think that it pertained to athletes. Train death.
Are
Olympic
you
level train death.
wait? So it was on transgender individuals, or was it? Okay,
It was
so
specifically on
that's not going to be a
transgender
study on
long distance runners
athletes.
who then transition, and so they had a placement running as one gender, and then they transition going through HRT, and then could be
Can you
placed.
link me the study? No, I'm out. Like or wait, where do you link it?
It's in the chat below, Alex, right below us. If you look where where all our we can see each other. It's right below. It's the one above the 5 and 5.
Yeah, that's an article on the study. Reading the study itself, she's done a couple of different studies, and the one that's
real quick,
people.
I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Jangle, no, it's not your fault. It's my. I apologize for being rude. So Jangles replies, wait, no, not his study. Sorry, the one that was getting thrown at Christy. That's what he says.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was wondering, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't say what people think it says.
Thank you for the correction on that, Jangles. I appreciate for the clarification.
Are you talking about the one that gets thrown at you? Is that the one where it's a bunch of transgender individuals who aren't athletes and there are different levels of muscle mass reduction that are incredibly varied because they're not athletes?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
See, again, this to me is, again, and I'm going to probably get flack for this. This is, for me, someone appealing to false authority, and here's what I mean by that. Not that the source of the information is invalid, is that these individuals that use this as a counter to you, Christy, they're using it, in my understanding, and this is, again, my belief, and I'm willing to change this opinion. But for me, people that throw these studies at individuals like us or others regarding to this topic, I would argue don't have a strong facet of understanding relating to the information in such study and how it correlates with the actual topic at hand. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's my perspective.
I have been for the past several weeks pouring through this study like it's also incredibly poorly written. So just to say that right off the bat. So it was really hard to figure out what the hell they were trying to say to begin with. But yeah, it is very bad. There's so much wrong with it. I'm looking forward to tearing in a new one. This is on my list of life goals.
Well, I guess, I mean, let me see if we get a consensus on this. Do you guys generally agree that when it comes to when it comes to my position that a lot of people are taking this topic, for example, and are going beyond their knowledge base or going beyond the grasp in regards to, this is not to say they shouldn't have their opinion, but do you guys agree or disagree that people are attacking topics that they generally may not have a complete understanding on? Is that do you guys agree or disagree with that?
Well, I mean, I think that's true of just about everything. I think what happens a lot of times is people play telephone with YouTube channels, parrot opinions of other YouTube channels sometimes, and there just ends up being like a circle of reactionary thinking that goes around, and people are like, they sound like they know what they're talking about, so I'm going to follow their opinion. They looked at some studies, so they must know what they're talking about. You know, there are various assumptions that are made about the quality of some people's knowledge. And, oh my god. Sorry.
So what about you? What about you, Christy? Perfect. What do you guys think?
The opinion I want to convince people of is, I want to convince people of two things. One, that it's worth expressing to the powers that be, the Olympic Committee. And I trust the Olympic Committee. I don't trust the WWA, the Wrestling Association, or the MMA, really. They're about the spectacle, and I don't trust them to be keeping after. So they'd have to be watched. And I expect but other sports franchises, I think, will do just fine with it, will do reasonably well with it. But they be taking their lead off the Olympic, where we need to be making them aware that we want them to be trying to find a way to have trans people and non-binary people in general
absolutely
participating. We want them to be participating. We need to find the way to have that happen. And that's the point. And then they need to work out how to do it, because we can't develop the expertise to actually tell them how to do it. We have to rely on their expertise.
And I share your sentiments, Perfict. For me, I kind of like I wish two things would occur. I wish that a institution or some type of science organization would do an in-depth study strictly on trans athletes, so we get a clear determination on the information regarding this topic. That's number one. Number two, in line with what you were saying, I sincerely hope that based on that information, based on that's derived from that study or what have you, that we make regulations, inclusive rules that will be fair to all. And if that makes any sense. And I'm not talking about fair in sports, I'm just talking in general policy, because as far as my understanding goes, when it comes to excluding people from things, as a society, we generally start off with as much freedom as possible. And then we rationally justify taking away such freedoms when they are either detrimental or harmful to society. And when it comes to this topic, I haven't seen a strong argument of how we should be taking the rights away of transgender athletes from competing. Because generally, when it comes to this concept, if they aren't generally doing harm to the concept of sports in general, that can be evident, that can be clearly seen, then the very notion itself is that they aren't causing harm until you have factual evidence to back up that claim. Does that make any sense what I'm getting at?
Yes, and the one article that is linked there, it does lead back to a study that is being a longitudinal study, or several longitudinal studies that are being done on specifically trans athletes, and that's actually why I started getting confused, because she's also comparing it to non-trans athletes, and I'm like, is that what he's trying to say? My mistake. I apologize, but yes, the person is doing a lot of work in the field. So,
what about you, Alex and Perfict? Do you guys agree or disagree with what I mentioned?
I think what you mentioned. So, obviously, people tend to go off of what's familiar, and
100% agree.
There's been like a lot of, women had to fight for being able to get into sports. Like, it's not. Sometimes people are like, this is how we're used to seeing society, so this is how society should be.
Real quick, if I can just mention this real quick. So this just came to the top of my head, and I have to mention this. As a historical basis, when it comes to our modern day understanding of sports, and again, maybe I'm wrong, people can fact check me and correct me if I am wrong. But when it comes to our modern day understanding of sports, you have to understand that as a historian, if I look at the history of sports, not the philosophy of sports, just the very notions of the rules of sports, women weren't allowed to participate in sports for centuries. Most sports that we derive today were invented with only men in mind. This is just a fact. I would love to see someone disagree with this. And so if that's the case, the problem is a lot of our modern understanding of sports still comes from that template, still comes from that perception. And I think that's a key issue. Can you imagine if we had a society and where it was more balanced when it comes to egalitarian principles? If that society had built sports surrounding that balance, can you imagine the type of sports we would have invented if that was the case? Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I guess anybody go ahead.
Would have had more sidearm sports.
Probably more archery and stuff.
Well, no, I mean sports where you throw sidearm.
Oh, okay, I got you. Got you.
Well, I actually when you say archery, I find it funny because my ex-wife, as we speak, that's what she's doing right now. She's off shooting things, shooting bows.
When you throw over, men's gearing has an. When you throw sidearm or under, women's gearing, the way women's arm gear, they get the advantage there. And the most important is they can throw sidearm all day long, and it's not too much stress for their elbow. They can just keep doing.
So real quick, I have to mention this out of respect for our viewers, but Jangle's Science Lab also, there is also a huge interesting history in determining who gets to compete in women's sports. And he posted, I guess, 2 studies or 2 research papers. I'll share it with you guys real quick on what he linked. I don't know if you guys can see it. But I guess it talks about the actual history of athletics. But see, I guess my only thing when I'm talking about Jangles is relating to the actual history of how each sports was founded, how each sports was the actual inventor of basketball, the inventor of football, so on and so forth. And if they actually, I would argue that those individuals did not invent those sports with women in mind. Again, that's my opinion. But here's the information I'll send to you guys real quick so you guys can look at this.
Oh, I'm glad Justin was able to join us for at least a little bit in the chat, because that's I was hoping he would. It's because he knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, and he's my go-to.
So
when I absolutely need.
So I guess, does anyone have any I want to give everyone a chance to give their final take relating to this topic, because I don't think we've covered it all by any measure, but I think we've covered a good portion of it that we can all address individually or bring up in the next week's show. But I guess one of the last things I want to mention is, out of respect that I said I was going to bring it up, is regarding the essence of thought, rationality, rules, and you can do a wrap-up real quick. I guess at the end of the day, I guess, what is everyone's general opinion of either of these individuals? And I ask to be honest. If you don't, I respect that too. But I'm going to be blunt, my respect it. But go ahead, guys.
Oh no! I've got opinions on this. So I think Rationality Rules is an egotistical person. Considering currently Rationality Rules is spouting the position Essence of Thought originally had, or almost identical to it in recently, but has reframed Essence of Thought's argument to be a more a caricature of what Essence of Thought's arguing was, and because I don't think Stephen Woodford wants to admit when he's actually wrong, because Stephen Woodford's position has changed, but he's still throwing Essence of Thought under the bus.
So what is your opinion on, if you have one, of essence of thought?
I honestly don't have a lot of opinions. A lot of the videos most recently, a lot of the videos about that specifically involved responses to Stephen Woodford's claims, because I think they felt like someone needed to respond to them, to Stephen Woodford's claims.
Fair enough. I guess let's go. Christy, Perfict, do you guys have any opinions regarding these two individuals?
I'm very close to this situation, as you very much know. So I'm gonna kind of back out a little bit. I
understand.
I'm friends with Peter and Udita, who are the two people who make up Essence of Thought, and there's like one or two places I've disagreed with them as this has gone on, but I think they felt so abandoned by the rest of the community that they were very angry. And anything I say past anything I say past that is going to be personal, and I don't want to get into anything that's just stuff I know from personal.
And I agree with that, and I understand it completely, Christy. I just going to want to say, I completely agree with you that a lot of the reactions that Essence of Thought got was incorrect. I don't think that they were and again, this is not to say that every single person, but there were fringe elements that did attack them in the most atrocious way, in my opinions. Like, the way they were approached relating to this issue is fundamentally wrong. And one of the things I have issues with is people, how they address others in regards to different topics. And I think that some of the individuals that attacked Essence of Thought regarded him as like some regressive or some like negative connotation. I don't accept that. I think it's wrong for them to do that. And that's one of the go ahead.
Oh, no, I did a video on my main channel, not my political channel, which was just the Sargon talking to Rationality Rules and comparing to that to the one YouTube video, the regressive left.
Yeah,
that was deep hurting. That video, deep hurting.
No, but that's see, the problem I have is, so if and I know you probably have an opinion on this, but if I can just mention real quick mine, Perfict, and then we'll go into you. But when it comes to my perspective on either of these individuals, I think that both of them have succumbed to some form of egoism. And one has done it because they're doing it pure on egoism based on this.
Oh, your live stream ended.
What's that, Alex?
Oh, no, it cut out for a minute. That's what happened. Sorry.
Okay. I just think, see, for me, I think that both of these individuals, and again, I can get flack for this, I think both of these individuals do this, in my opinion, at try to be in good faith. As I've mentioned before, I don't think that Stephen Woodford is an actor. What's that, Alex?
Oh, I disagree with you there. I don't think Stephen Woodford acts in good faith. I think he's doing it to either he seems to be doing it to look good.
And I agree.
You can change your opinion because if you can change your opinion, not have an apology, completely reframe the person arguing with's opinion to justify the argument in the first place. That doesn't sound like. I mean, maybe that's just my poor understanding of good faith conversation, and and what counts as good faith versus bad faith. But
yeah, so my understanding, and again, I could be wrong, but on this, but see, when I see something in good faith, I guess my definition of good faith, maybe it's not the common usage, and I'm happy to be corrected on this. But when I say something, someone is talking in good faith, they start off their objections or counters or criticisms, however you want to address it, in an unbiased as much as possible. Of course, they're going to have a bias, but they are approaching the topic being discussed at hand with a fair and balanced perspective first, and then changing that perspective based on what's laid in front of them. For me, both of these individuals, they had such a different response when it comes to this situation. One was purely driven by them trying to make themselves look better, as you mentioned, Stephen Woodford, and then another person tried to basically defend themselves. And I guess, does that make any sense what I'm mentioning, what I'm saying?
Well, I don't, if you're going to lie about the argument that is like the conversation that you had and what their opinions are, I don't consider like recreating a situation based on lies that you can win with your current views is just I don't know. I've got I'm not sure. One moment, cat. The Thor, who's being so nice, wants to leave my room. I have my door closed. One moment, I'll be right back. Sorry if I don't respond to that.
Yeah, no problem. But I just want to say this one last little tidbit. For me, though, I think that both of these individuals are not bad faith actors. I sincerely don't. I think that both of them make mistakes. Both of them have made mistakes for different reasons. One is based on him trying to keep an appearance of being, positive growth for their channel, what have you. And then another person did it. Go ahead.
Trying to pretend he's smart.
Yeah, exactly. And another person presented this in a way because they got really defensive. And that's my perspective. I think, like I said, I think they are both good people in general. And I think that the mistakes happened on both sides. And I really wish to satisfy this issue, I really wish that both of them would sit down at one time and just have a rational discussion. They may end up... Go ahead.
Oh, see, I don't... this is the problem. If I don't know, and like I said, that rational realism is based off of his ego or whatever, but I don't know this for sure. I don't know the reasoning why rationality rules changed his opinion, because he doesn't admit to his opinion being changed. So I don't know if he's a good person. I don't know what will qualify as a good person. I don't know if the moment his opinion looks bad to him, for whatever reason it looks bad to him, if he thinks that he'll just change his opinion and then reframe any argument to be a different opinion. I don't know how I can trust a person like that to have a simple, rational discussion.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Alex, because, see, for example, I did a video on my channel of roughly about 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, in where, I was talking about signal boosting and amplifying someone's bad ideas. And one of the problems I have when it comes to these types of critiques is we are stuck with our gears churning in our head in regards to making a determination if this has been addressed or not until we have some form of evidence. And I don't think that, like, for example, when you mentioned what you were saying about ego, it's not you ascribing that you think he's an actual egoist or you have a way of knowing he is, but this is just your opinion. And I think that's the problem, is that we're stuck at this point in where it's strictly an opinion, and it's a valid opinion, but it's not us saying that this person is this thing. Maybe you disagree.
Well, yeah, but okay. So here's the thing. He said the opinion that he stated is drastically different from the opinion that he had when he disagreed with Essence Thought. Either he lied about it, he completely misremembers the conversation and didn't decide to check back to see if any of his information was accurate. I'm trying to think of another reason. Either he did something really dumb or he lied. And I don't about that. And I don't think, well, I don't know if rationality, like everyone does dumb things every once in a while, but like it's really suspect to me.
I understand.
That you go either you was misrepresenting it then, he's misrepresenting it now. He was very confused and unintentionally misrepresented his position then, or he was misrepresenting it now. But the lack of acknowledgement of the change, there was a discord between those, makes you go, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what his position actually is or where he is at.
Well, which is why I tend to, that's why I lean towards the ego-driven thing, because like regardless of if he's lying or he completely did, regardless of the reasoning, he didn't do any self-reflection. I don't think he did any self-reflection, because if he did, he would have actually looked back. Like, and, you know...
I'm just saying that I would appreciate his coming on and saying, if somebody shows me that my opinion is wrong, or that I'm holding a wrong opinion, I drop it like a hot rock. And so, you know, yes, my opinions can change in a moment. If I become convinced of my opinion is wrong, why would I still hold it?
Yeah, and if I can just mention this real quick, and I think this goes into the facet of the issue with this, is when it comes to these two individuals, you know, again, this is where I think, I want to be very clear here real quick so everyone understands, and you can tell me if you disagree with this notion, Alex, that you're not ascribing, you're just mentioning your opinion. Is that, you're not saying that you...
I try to...
I don't want...
This, by the way, is the subject of my video. I tried to do my best to get out of my opinion thing, just mention the facts and what I think about the facts, and the possibilities that could occur. Because the thing is, I don't see a good possibility. But the thing is, ultimately, and I mentioned this in my video too. Sorry, that I need to finish editing. But ultimately, I don't know Stephen Woodford. I don't know him as a person. I don't know with any sort of guaranteed certainty that he is immutable, that he will never ever change his opinion. I point out.
I think, if I can just real quick add, I think it...
Sorry, attitude. I said attitude, not opinion. His opinion has changed. His attitude.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, Alex, I think that his opinion and attitude is evolving to a better direction. That's my opinion. Again, that's my take. People can disagree.
Opinion, yes. Attitude, no.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people can disagree. I guess maybe it's just the optimist in me. I try to see the good in people.
About that, you say that you're an optimist about some things and pessimist about other things. You just don't want to admit your pessimism because you're optimistic about your ability to discern the good things and stuff.
It's my ego, Alex. I can't let go of the ego.
Well, I mean, everyone has some amount of egotistical thinking. It's just, you know, how much in control. But like, yeah, if someone's willing to completely, intentionally or not, misrepresent information, that doesn't look good in terms of my views of this attitude. And I'm talking about a video that came out like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, or whatever the fuck the
think it's
the
almost a year.
preview video. No, the preview
Yeah,
video.
the 15-minute preview. Yeah.
Yeah, in the 15-minute preview, he completely what he says is not accurate to what happened, and that's a problem. It is completely inaccurate to what happened, which is why I made a video on it, which I need to finish editing. But I show what rationality rules said, what essence of thought said, and it was less than a year ago. But yeah, and then what rationality rules says now, and what rationality rules says now. And by the way, fucking. Here's fucking. I hate that Sargon of Akkad said the right goddamn thing because it pissed me off.
Well,
actually say that because Sargon said that essentially their opinions were the same, and they that rationality rules essentially came around to essence of thought's opinion on transgender people in sports, and rationality rules did, and Stephen Woodford says the same thing. Essence of Thought, almost the same thing that Essence of Thought said in the original video, the original response to Stephen Woodford.
One of the biggest problems with this entire conversation, though, is that there was so many other players and so much else going on in this. It's hard to discount Matt Dillahunty's role in this. Rachel Oates. I hate to mention it, but Cirrus, because we've kind of made up a bit, but or not made up. He knows what happened.
Go ahead, Christy. I apologize.
I mean, so many. I mean, I'm just using the big names, and I could go and just put the list out there, and it would be almost the entire atheist community. One of the reasons I have difficulty doing this is during this, I had not encountered focused transphobia before. I encountered some, but not severely focused, and I ran my car into a tree during this. So I'm having a lot of difficulty just listening to it from that. It was just two people. It wasn't that. It actually had to do with something else that happened during all of this.
Absolutely. And I think it was one of the problems that you're mentioning. It was a catalyst. It was a built-up animosity, a built-up angst that was in this community on social media, that it just took one topic, one event to break the bottleneck, as to say. I do want to just say this real quick, and I have to be fair here. One of the main criticisms I have of Essence of Thought, and I don't, again, flack. I'm ready for it. They, in my opinion, they make and ascribe what they determine what they consider someone to be. They make ascriptions of what they consider Stephen Woodford to be. Now, it's fair to share your opinions of what you think they are, but this is the issues I have with Essence of Thought. He ascribes notions of something that there's no way he would feasibly be able to make a determination on. You can make an opinion on it, absolutely, but when he states that this person is this, when this person is that, there's a problem with that. You don't know that. Well,
the thing is, that's because you're too busy with the the soft gloves when Rationality Rules made like so many different videos because of the ACA problems because of that, and then Essence of Thought ascribes something, and like in the first video, Essence of Thought doesn't. The first response video, Essence of Thought doesn't ascribe anything. I don't think it was the second video either. Like this is months of like the same. Yeah.
But Christy, or I'm sorry, Alex. I apologize, Christy. But Alex, I agree with you that it wasn't until after a certain that he didn't do this. That's not the issue. From my opinion, you cannot rationally justify ascribing a position to someone without clear evidence of it. You can make an inference.
Well, you can make an inference. I think the amount of threats that all of us on that side, quote unquote, were getting, the amount of threats and the complete incapability of Rationality Rules to even look beyond his own toenails to see that this was something that was really blowing up, because he took it all as himself. And I have very complex opinions whether Woodford is transphobic or not. I've said no in the past, and I also have said yes in the past, and I cannot I cannot figure out the actual answer to that.
If I can give my opinion, I'm going to be very clear here. I have no problem saying this out loud to everyone. I do think that Stephen Woodford's videos and during that time were incredibly transphobic. Again, I have no problems telling that to anyone. But again,
that's what I was going to get at. I said if we just go by then that is what I would ascribe. I would also ascribe. I'd kind of been squicked out by it, so I was, when this dropped, I was about to drop Rationality Rules anyway, because he was praising the transphobes before, and it was subtle, but it wasn't that subtle, but it was there, and it was like, okay, anybody who thinks Ben Shapiro can absolutely, wreck a college student, and that's great, or that Jordan Peterson is a fantastic speaker, you know what they made their bones on.
Yeah, it's a little bit sketchy, I agree.
So I think the problem is, like, you can't guarantee what's going on in anyone's mind, and it depends on how much you want to limit ascribing things, because you can't guarantee someone's a liar. You can't guarantee that, so you can't call anyone a liar. Like, you get to ridiculous lengths with...
no, this is not...
Perfect.
I'm trying to draw it all the way back.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to say this quick. So, I apologize, Perfect. This is my fault. I should be moderating this. Perfect. You've been very respectful, and you haven't said anything. Please, out of respect, I want to give Perfect a chance. So I apologize. That's not on anyone but my fault. So please, Perfect, what is your perspective on this topic? Thank you for your patience, by the way.
Okay, I was not trying. I wouldn't be saying it's trying to say that they are trying to put some limit on. You can't ever say anyone's lying. You can say someone's lying if you had no reasonable cause to believe what you were saying and so on. But it's when Essence of Thought puts in his videos things like he's saying that Woodford did this at this point in order to maximize the damage to the trans community. That's ascribing. He's saying he did it too. His intention was to damage the trans community, and that he set out to do that, and he chose this course of action. Well, that's wrong. You're not supposed to do that. That's a bad behavior.
That is a place where I did disagree with them. And remember, there's two people that.
That's why I was trying to keep it to Essence of Thought. I thought.
Yes. That is where I disagreed with them on just, but it was a soft disagreement. I didn't disagree with their conclusions. Not the motivations. I don't think you could ever have ascribed properly. Although it was hard near that point to ascribe. But when this dropped in early March, and when Essence of Thought first used the word transphobe in June, by that point, I don't think there was any question that
and I agree with you, Christy. When see, for me, when Essence of Thought ascribed that portion to his video, I think that was accurate. But I'm now, again, remember, I'm talking about, see, when it comes to what I'm saying, when it comes to my criticisms, it comes after that fact. So I have seen multiple videos of Essence of Thought ascribing guilt or ascribing notions to other individuals, saying that they are, transphobes themselves because of this, or they're transphobes because of this. You can't make those reasonable. You can't make those ascriptions. I mean, you just can't. You can say, in my opinion, they may be this way, but that's different from saying that they are this way. I think that's the key issue.
It depends on the action. It depends on what motivations you can reasonably ascribe to a particular action. If somebody goes and whacks somebody over the back of the head, you can say that person was planning on being violent. That is a thing. Or this person intended violence. That's what I meant. Sorry. That particular, the distinction at that point in all of this became so trivial that and you notice I'm not looking at the camera now. I'm having I think Peter and Udita, and I'm gonna just put him by name as opposed to Essence of Thought, the brand, had seen so many of their friends hurt. There was no way they were going to not react that way.
And I don't disagree with you, Christy. I think that, as I was mentioning earlier, I think that because they had to go into the defensive, this is why this whole situation occurred. But real quick, so I do want to give. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was just gonna say we're past time, by the way.
Oh yeah, but this is a good discussion now. I apologize if. But real quick, I want to be fair. Perfect. We're gonna just do the wrap up here for the last 10 minutes. But perfect. I want to give you the chance to do you have any last comments you want to make relating to this? And again, we can approach this at another time relating to. I think we've hit it pretty good in regards to our own positions. But what about you, Perfect? Do you have anything final relating to this?
No, I think I've gotten my points out. I think the rhetoric is important. I think it's important to understand that we're not talking about women's sports as in sports for women. We're talking about women's sports as in a subcategory.
Yeah, that's.
I think that's very valid point.
An important distinction, and that we're not talking about we all get to decide how this should go. There are other people who really get to decide how this goes. We need to that. We need to tell the Olympic Committee what it is we want, which is participation for all people.
And I think it's incredibly important that, as a person that I believe that I'm a humanist by nature, I think that we should try to push for inclusivity as much as possible, no matter what the situation may occur. I'm pretty sure everyone here agrees with that. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I'm sorry. I did warn you that there was a chance I was just going to sort of wander off into my own brain at
Christy,
some point during this.
You're perfectly fine. I appreciate you being here. It's not. It's understandable. This topic is incredibly hard hitting to a lot of individuals, including myself, because it comes through. It hits us because of our personal experiences that we're all dealing with, and also may affect others regarding to their own perspective. But go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it hit Christy, like, all this stuff hit Christy the hardest, and to traumatic levels, it sounds like.
So everyone, to help Christy feel better and to give her a little bit of love, make sure you go and subscribe to her channels and check her out on when she's going to do this on Twitch later on and check out her stuff. But with that case, with that being the note, let's start with you, Christy, since I already invoked your name. So I guess, what do you got coming up this upcoming week, Christy? Anything new?
Yes, I have. Jesse Gender is coming up. If we get our schedules coordinated properly, she should be coming up on Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern time. Because I pre-record all the interviews. And I'm also going to be putting another song up on my regular channel, not my music channel, which I don't do that often. But any trans-related material I put up on my own.
I was going to ask you a question because I'm very fascinated that you're a musician, because I know this sounds really pathetic, but I don't know a lot of professional musicians or even amateur musicians myself personally. So I'm just curious on this, Christy. You don't have to divulge anything personal beyond just like yes or no, maybe. But
sure.
I know you have your band that you mentioned from last week. Do you guys do like live events in your surrounding area?
Yeah, we're doing we split up for the winter just for various reasons. Everybody had their own projects going on. I was writing a new thing, and the bass player was doing had another project going on. So, but the other writer in the band and I are going to be doing part of a large lineup of people for Planned Parenthood benefit coming up in March, which is going to be great.
Awesome. Yeah, if you do have any footage or you have anything, and I would like to check it out, Christy, if you ever get a chance. So if that comes
Absolutely.
up. All right. So Alex, what do you got coming up? I know you say you're going to be doing your video, but anything else?
I mean, outside of, I should be doing my video, or my video should come out tomorrow. I should be getting back to D&D. Unfortunately, one of the players can't make it anymore, so the D&D stream will be going on tomorrow.
And you do this every Saturday?
For internet. I try to. It's not guaranteed every Saturday that I can do it, and if not, I try to stream. Like streaming's hard, so I try to stream. I'm streaming right now, obviously, but also tomorrow, Fridays and Saturdays, I try to stream at 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern, for however long I can manage dealing with streaming. No, depends on the day, depends on how much conversation I have. I tend to get more woken up by conversation. And then, like, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific is when I try to stream on Sundays. Sundays are the days that I tend to be the worst, and it's all on Ozma in the Dark on Twitch, so OZMA in the dark.
I was going to ask, I know you used to have a set schedule because you had real life stuff happening, Alex. Are you planning on going back to a set schedule in the near future when things get changed?
I mean, this is my current set thing. This seems to be the most reasonable one that I could come up with in terms of a set schedule, because I don't think I can stream more than 3 days a week. So I'm trying my best with this, and because I'm trying to get other stuff done. By the way, the writing thing reminded me of the fact that I haven't gotten back to a good writing schedule. There's too many things I want to do. That's my problem.
Time eats at us all the time, Alex. And like I said, I'm looking forward to your video on your breakdown. So I'll make sure. I just wanted to mention that, and please make sure when it comes to already.
Yeah, that'll be on this politics channel, the same channel I'm streaming this to, as well as my. And
when will that be out, Alex? I'm
trying to have it at. I'm trying to have it. I should be finished with the video today, and it'll probably be delayed upload for noon tomorrow Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Awesome. All right, and we got Perfict. Perfict, you still don't have anything yet, do you, sir?
Nope, not promoting anything. Just promoting this show.
I appreciate that, Perfict. And as everyone knows, I am Malice Odium. I have a YouTube channel that I intermittently make videos on, but this is my main working together. And it's been a great conversation, guys. I greatly appreciate everyone that's watched for the last couple hours. I think we've addressed a lot of great topics. Of course, there's nothing that more needs to be discussed. And at the end of the day, I think we just need to have more openness when it comes to discussion and try our best to, be the best we can be in regards to our situations. Again, thank you so much for all the co-hosts. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Perfict, for being here in another week. And look forward to talking to you guys again on another topic. So.
Okay, an easier one next time.
I will try. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And you guys have a great night. You guys take care.